Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it.
Doing, guys?
We've been waiting for you.
Man, how long have I been away and absent?
Away and absent?
Yeah. Well, when I did my computer restart, I had to wait for the satellites to link up, and
We've been waiting for you. Do you not understand what 8:30 means?
Well, 8:30 your time, 7:30 my time. It was my apologies if I held you up.
Yeah, you have. It's 8:40. It is now 7:47 your time.
So you guys are done talking and wrapping it up right now?
We're getting ready to go to
we're wrapping it up. We've had the interview.
Remember.
Yeah, right. No, this is a Happy Rails, I think.
Oh, yes. It could. Well, yes.
Yeah,
we'll find out when we get there.
It's episode 175, I think.
So,
I don't know.
It's the mid 170s.
Yeah, it's the mid 170s. So you know what I did about a minute ago there, Bruce?
What's that?
As soon as Bill showed up. Or is it William? Do you prefer Bill or William?
I go by Bill with family. William is just on most of my accounts that I have.
Okay. So do you prefer? So let me ask you again. Do you prefer Bill or William?
I prefer Bill, probably, for people that know me. Yeah.
Okay. Do we know you or?
Oh yeah, I think we determined that last time we chatted. You know me just marginally enough.
Okay. What do you, Tom? What do you call him?
I call him William.
Oh, there you go. All right. So it's like you got it all going on. I'm going to turn my camera off because it'll be much better with my camera. So anyways, about a minute and 30. As soon as you showed up, Bill, I hit the record button because I wanted to lambaste you on the air about being late. We didn't understand what was going on. I thought we decided 8:30. Is this the way you plan on going forward in your life, young man?
No, I need to be more prompt.
Tom almost left. He says enough of this stuff. All right.
We had to hold him down.
Yeah, what was that thing?
The story about the live link, it just popped in my head, but where Annie Potts is screaming at Ghostbusters, "We got one!"
Yeah, that's right. That's right, yeah, because Bill sent us a message. Let us know when you have a live. We've had a live link for 20 minutes. Now I'm yelling at Bill. Now I'm yelling at everybody. This is what the podcast is just...
The podcast. The podcast. Grumpy.
As the years went by, it just deteriorated into Lionel yelling at everybody. Okay, so I've already hit the button. We've already started. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to do it a little bit different because Tom's already come in out of the green room. He's already in the studio because he kept walking in out of the green room going, "Where's Bill?" I don't know. I kept saying, I don't know. I don't know what.
Has his plane landed yet?
Yeah, has his plane landed yet? Is the limo here? Is Bill here? Is William here? So anyways, this was going to be like it was happening or something like that. And when I contacted Tom, because this all started, Bill, because you and I did an interview or some sort of podcast about something. Oh, about the 200th patron.
Yep.
And as we were talking, you started telling me about how you became great friends with Tom Klimoski, and he was on my list to revisit for the podcast. So then I said, hey, boom, why don't we have a podcast where Bill and Tom are here together, or William and Tom, or William and Thomas, or Bill and Thomas are here together, along with Bruce, the moderately agitated mailboy. And here we are. So go ahead, Bill. Ask Tom a question.
Well, a lot of questions, I guess, for Tom, and we've covered a lot of content over the time. But Tom, in the conversations that we've had in the past, would you ever imagine that somebody in the middle of the country, well, in my case, it's Minneapolis, would connect with a guy like yourself you're in Georgia, or just outside of Atlanta, right?
That's correct. I'm just north of Atlanta, as we established before. I'm about 2 hours from everywhere, so 2 hours from Atlanta. I've never in my wildest dreams would have figured that I'd be talking to people from all across the country and even across the world. I've corresponded with some people in New Zealand and Europe and Germany, etc. I just never would have figured that. And that all came from just posted a few videos on YouTube.
Oh, okay, so you posted videos on YouTube and somehow, Bill, you found them.
That's actually really kind of where it started. I had just been browsing on YouTube trying to find content for model railroading, and there's a lot of it out there, but how well is a lot of it done? I'm a photographer and a graphic designer by trade, so I look for a lot of the details and somebody that's paying attention to the details. I ran across Tom's videos, and he was doing more prototype videos of his railroad as if you were watching, an industry get switched out or a yard, crew putting a train together. And I thought, man, some of the videos about 13, 15 minutes long. And as he assembled them, you sat there and you're hooked in. You got a little subtitles and read kind of what's going on. That's what hooked me into his videos. And then I started doing videos myself, and Tom started commenting on some of my videos. I'm like, that's the guy that does the 15-minute videos of the prototype. It's really cool. We messaged back and forth, and before you know it, after time had gone on, we emailed with one another about different modeling techniques and some of the video techniques. But I do have to ask you, Tom, what got you into doing the videos in that style of your railroad?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I did on the fire department. I was an instructor for many years on the fire department. So I look at these videos more as instructional videos. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to work on the prototype. I was a trainman on the Blue Ridge Scenic Railway. So I got to work with the engineers. I got to start the locomotives, doing brake tests, doing all these other things that most model railroaders never get a chance to do. And a lot of them don't have access to information from prototype engineers. There's a few out there. There's been some that have been extremely helpful to me. Tom Holly is a retired Norfolk Southern engineer, Barry Kahlberg, Tim Garland, and then I have a few friends on the Georgia Northeastern. And they were able to answer my questions. When I was working on the Blue Ridge, I was able to ask the engineer because I was sitting in the cab and watching him operate the locomotive. So I got a real good understanding of what it takes to operate a locomotive. So when I started doing the videos, rather than just showing trains running around with no real understanding of why they're going through, to me just didn't seem very entertaining. So I said, why don't I do some semi-instructional videos or to tell a story? And that to me is probably the most important thing when doing a video is you need to have a story. You need to have a storyline as to why this locomotive is starting here. Why is it switching this industry? Why is it making the moves that it is? And what would a real crew be doing if they were there operating the locomotive? So I'm kind of famous for using a little conductor figure in my videos. And I think now if I don't use them, everybody would wonder what happened to the figure, because it helps people kind of visualize what a real crew would be doing and how much time it takes to do these little mundane tasks of setting the brakes and doing a car inspection and all those other things that go into operating a prototype and operating it safely, and all the other little nuances like derails and fence gates. And so those are the things that I've had included on my layout, and I try to incorporate the prototype rules. I'm fortunate in that I have a prototype rule book that I had to know for the Georgia Northeastern. We got tested on the rules. So I'm not going to say I'm an expert on them, but I have a lot of friends that are. So if I don't know, I can reach out to them and they can give me an answer, and then I can relay that into an answer if someone asks a question on one of my videos.
So did you, how long did you work on the Georgia Northeastern?
I was a trainman. I was on the Blue Ridge Scenic for 6 years. The first year, when you first start off as a car host, which is basically a flight attendant. You assist the passengers with getting on, you answer questions, you learn about the scenic highlights as you're going through the territory, if you will. And just there to kind of help and assist the passengers as necessary. And then I was able to move up to the trainman position the next year, which required some tests, and you have to show physical ability, being able to get on and get off the equipment, set the handbrakes, do all the kind of physically demanding things that are required of a trainman, which in today's world would be the job of a conductor. On our passenger train, we had a conductor who was in charge of the train. So that would be the guy that comes through and punches the tickets, and he was in charge. But the trainmen kind of did all the work. They were the worker bees, if you will, and we'd come up and start the locomotives in the morning and operate check the brakes, do all those other things that needed to be done to service and maintain the train. One of the interesting things that we did was we had toilets on some of the cars, and they had holding tanks, and on a regularly scheduled basis, we would have to go dump the holding tanks. And it's similar if you're familiar with how an RV works. There's a hose, and you hook it up, and you open up a lever, and then that hose goes down into a sewer system. Well, we had a spot where we would do that, so we would have to get there early. We'd move the train up, and we'd hook up the hose, and we'd have to call for the engineer to pull ahead one car, count them down to an exact spot so that we could hook up the hose. We didn't want to miss the spot too much, because then it would require him to back up or do extra work. So we got pretty good at calling down and calling car counts and things like that. So that was all part of the job. And then just doing whatever else needed to be done, checking the train as we were traveling to make sure we weren't dragging any brakes or had any other problems. And then the third part of our job, if you will, was if there was a tree that was down across the tracks, we had chainsaws, so we'd have to go and cut and clear the tracks so that we could continue our journey. And that happened a couple of times where a tree would fall down across the tracks. We'd have to cut it to clear.
While there was passengers on the, or this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There was a track inspector that would go up the rails to double check the line, and they would do that 2 to 3 times a week. But during the peak season, we were running 7 days a week, so it wasn't every day that the track was being inspected prior to our departure from Blue Ridge. So occasionally, if we had a storm come through during the night, as the engineer was coming around a corner, all of a sudden he'd see a tree down across the track, and we knew, obviously, as soon as we felt the brakes being applied, we knew that we were going to have to go do some work and cut and clear some trees. There never was enough trees down that we weren't able to cut them and clear them. Some of the larger trees could take a little while, but we usually went ahead and just hacked at them until we got them just enough room to clear so that we could get through and continue on.
So when was the last time you were on the podcast? Do you remember?
It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and weren't you working for the railroad then, or had you already stopped?
It was probably right around the time that I stopped. What happened was the railroad was owned by an individual, and then it was sold to Patriot Rail, and they ended up making some changes and did away with a lot of positions. My position was, we'll say, part-time. It was volunteer, but it wasn't really volunteer because we were getting paid. We had to meet all the requirements, so it was more of a part-time job. They did away with the part-time job and started, we'll say, putting their people in that they wanted, and pretty much ran off most of the people that were there from the beginning. A lot of the conductors, trainmen, car hosts and stuff had been there from the beginning. They were the ones that cleared the line. They did a lot of work. I mean, blood, sweat, and tears to get this tourist railroad up and running. And then they kind of just overlooked that, and they wanted to do things their way. And so
it must have turned it into a money-making proposition if these guys wanted to get their hands on it then.
It was a little bit of both. Patriot Rail had never operated a passenger line, so they weren't really that familiar, and it kind of scared them because of liability issues and things like that. I mean, you could have a lot of problems if people start getting hurt, and so the big thing was safety, which was good. I mean, no complaints there. But some of the things that they did, they used safety as a hammer to get rid of people, if you will. So they took over the line and started making changes, and then it took a lot of the fun out of it. It was a real family atmosphere before. I mean, everybody did their work, but it was real fun. They got people together. We had picnics. We had after hours get-togethers, and it was really fun. And then once the big company came in, took over, it took a lot of the fun out of it, and a lot of people started leaving, and it became more of a job. And I'd had one of those before, and I was doing this for fun, not for not for pay.
Exactly. Yeah, it became a job, and then like you say, you were already retired, and you were doing it as recreation more than anything else. And then
have you gone back since and seen what it's like to even ride as a patron?
I have not. After they took away the trainman position, I stayed on for another year as a car host, and it was okay, but it was kind of hard. It's like we'll make the analogy. It's like being the pilot and then being pushed back to ground service personnel. I mean, once you're in the pilot seat, it's kind of hard to go back. Well, once you're riding in the locomotive and doing the job of a trainman, to go back as a car host was all right, but it just didn't do it. I really enjoyed the job of a trainman. It was a lot of work. I mean, but it was exactly what I wanted to do.
So what exactly is the name of your YouTube channel there, Tom?
Thomas Klimoski. That's it.
Thomas Klimoski. So it's very similar to your own personal name then.
Exactly. And my website is thomasklimovsky.com. The only difference between the YouTube channel and that is just the .com.
So, and your website is really slick. And you said, I remember you telling me your son built that for you.
Yes, he did. That's my oldest son was responsible for setting that up for me because he knew that there was no way I could figure it out.
Well, it's a really nice website.
It is a spectacular website.
Yeah, the story along with that is that he came up here and he was working at a different job, we'll say, and he wasn't real happy at the job. And while he was up here, he wanted some time to get away, so he came up to visit. He was living in Miami at the time. He came up to visit, and he just needed to get away, just kind of escape. So we did a lot of hikes and doing things like that just kind of took his mind off. And one evening, I said, "Hey, would you mind helping me set up a website? I know that Wix has a free website. You can set it up real easy." And he's a computer guy, so he started setting it up and designing the pages and everything else. And it came out really nice. And we said, "Well, you're really good at that. Why don't you look at getting a job at one of these companies that does websites?" No. He just that's just dad talking. He's I'm not going to listen to that. So he goes back home. A couple weeks later, he calls us up and he says, "Can you help me fix my resume? I'm applying for a job." I said, "Where is it?" He said, "Wix." So the company that he used to design the website is exactly who he ended up applying with. So he applied and he went in there and he showed him the website that he had designed. And he says, "If I can teach my dad how to do this, I can pretty much teach anybody." And he got the job.
Excellent.
It's a beautiful website. It really is a fun website. I mean, that's another whole part of the hobby.
It's got those. I want to ask a question to sort of tie it back into what you and Bill were talking about, is you're teaching people how and all the various things that have to be done, and that is in line in what's becoming much more popular these days, particularly with smaller layouts. Yours isn't a huge layout, and it's a perfect one. Is that you add all these things in, it increases the time and, for lack of a better term, play value of an operating session. Because and Lance Mindheim is another guy who's a big proponent of this, is do everything Prototype does. It speeds, slows everything down and makes you think. And it takes a session that, if you weren't doing it all, would be very short, and puts it into an enjoyable evening. So is that the type of thing you're looking at getting people doing more of?
Yes, absolutely. And Lance is very instrumental in where I am in the hobby. I had, as we're talking about social media and stuff, I was looking for pictures of a locomotive on the internet, and I happened to see one of Lance's pictures of a CSX locomotive on his East Rail layout, which was his previous layout to the Miami downtown spur. And I contacted him. I found his website, contacted him, started asking some questions, and he answered me back, and I was shocked. I mean, somebody that is as well known as Lance responded back to me, and we started corresponding, and he was answering my questions and really got into we're very similar in our operations design. We think along the same lines. So he was very instrumental in that. And he also is the one that got me started writing articles for Model Railroader. He's the one that kind of pushed me in that direction. So that's kind of where I'm at today. But yes, you're exactly right. What Lance proposes is exactly what I enjoy doing, and following the details and operating slowly, realistically. And you'll find that you don't really need that much layout to have a good operating session. Just the other day, I had a couple of friends over, and we did an operating session. If you look at the track plan on my layout, it starts off on a staging cassette, and then it works its way into the room and goes through the town of Marietta. And there's 6 industries in Marietta. Well, just to work that one section of my layout took an hour and a half.
And how big is your layout?
The room that the layout is in is 9'2" by 10'6". So it's about the size of an average bedroom, maybe even a little bit smaller. An average bedroom's probably 10 by 10 or 10 by 12. So this is a little bit smaller than that. I do have a staging cassette that goes into the adjacent room, which is my wife's craft room, and it's removable. So I'd only set it up for operating sessions. Takes a couple of seconds to set it up.
Time out.
Yes.
What is a staging cassette?
It's a removable section. I guess the the British call it sector plates and some other different terms for it, but that's a little bit different setup. A transverser, those are all. But a staging cassette, I saw that also with Lance. He built one for his East Rail layout, and it was just a short section of track, maybe about 2 feet long, and he used a clamp to clamp it onto the layout that gave him a little bit more room to stage the train and then bring that into the scenic part of the layout. I kind of went a little bit further with mine. I did full scenery on it and everything else for a couple of reasons. One, it's the first thing you see when you walk into the craft room. You see this section sticking out, and it's supported on one end by legs, and the other end is attached to the wall, which goes through the hole in the wall and into the layout room.
Did your wife know you were doing this, or did you just start doing it one day? And how big is it? How big is it?
Well, the original staging cassette was 5'6" by 8 inches. So it was 8 inches wide, 5 feet 6 inches long. And I used that one for the last few years. And then recently, just back in January, I made a new staging cassette. I wanted to expand it a little bit. So I made this one a little bit longer and a little bit wider. So I went from 2 staging tracks to 4 staging tracks. If you go to my website, there's a blog on it, and I kind of cover how I built it, how I wired it, scenery. It's like a 3-part series on my blog. So if you go on to that, you'll see each month I kind of detail those steps that I took. And those steps can also be applied to a regular layout. This just happens to be a removable section on my layout.
So March 28th. So your website is Thomas Klimoski, Thomas THOMAS Klimoski KLIMOSKI. .com. Dot is just a dot. You don't spell it. It's just like actually a dot, and then com, C-O-M. So I see here on March 28th, there's an entry, Act 1, Staging Act 1, Construction. April 14th, there's an entry. And are these videos, or are they?
It's just pictures on a blog. This is not. Now I do have a video that shows operating on the staging cassette.
All right, time it. Oh, okay. So on the blog, it says 4 minutes. So is this a video, or is this a story?
That's how long it takes you to read it. Some could be longer, some could be shorter. That's part of the website.
Mileage may vary.
Yeah.
It just lets you know how much time am I going to dedicate to reading this thing. And I think the average is 4 minutes, but some could read faster, some can read slower. But that's part of that website design that my son has. It's part of the Wix new blog thing. It just tells you how long it's going to take the average person to read the blog.
There you go.
Well, and the other nice thing too is that you can just click the subscribe. I subscribe to your blog, and it's a quick read. Very informational, but hitting the subscribe, because you're not just a regular, every second week of the month, are you? Or do you try to do it monthly?
I try to do it monthly. There's no set pattern. I'm due to write another one each month. I try to do something just to keep interest going. I have different similar to you, Bill, with your videos. Kind of pick a few topics. I've got a few things in mind, and I've got an idea for the next couple of blogs. But things could get moved around depending on if something comes up that's interesting that I want to just post that month. Something jumps ahead in the order, but I do have a few ideas already in mind for the next couple of blogs.
Well, the one thing I really like about your pace is that you end up you use the proto throttle to I guess run the locomotives, but the pace that you kind of integrate that. What got you to the step speeds, or how you kind of set up your proto throttle in conjunction with the locomotives?
Most of the speed steps and stuff came from Joe Atkinson, who's Iowa Interstate model railroader. Again, another person that I met through the internet, through my website and through other people. And it's really neat. That's one of the best things I think about this hobby is the friends that you make through the hobby. I mean, I've met some fantastic people, and I'm going to say that they're going to be lifelong friends. It's not just a model railroad friend. Lance and I have gone past that model railroad friends a long time ago. I mean, we talk about stuff that a lot of times when we email each other, we don't even talk about model railroading. We talk about house projects or different things or anything and everything. It's more like a friend, not just a model railroad friend. And that's how I think of a lot of the guys that I've met through the channel and stuff. They're not just acquaintances. They're good friends now, and talk about things that outside of just model railroading.
Okay, so that's the main reason. That's what got me excited. Bruce, do you think I introduced anybody?
No.
No, I don't think so either.
How far are we in?
26 minutes.
Well, yeah, because you should be wrapping up introductions. So yeah, that's what's got me confused.
So tonight we're interviewing. Boy, can you imagine what this would be like if it was professional?
Well, this is kind of like one of those movies you get the whole bunch of stuff started, and all of a sudden the credits start rolling when they're a good chunk in to tell you what's going on.
Yeah, that's it. We're doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. All right. So anyways, tonight this whole thing started, I think I said that, when William Sampson, say hi, Bill.
Hello. Hi, Bill.
Yeah, when we were talking to him, and then he started telling me how he struck up a friendship with Tom Klimoski. Say hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
And then, of course, yeah, I think I did sort of introduce everybody. Boy, I can't, because you know what?
It doesn't hurt, We've got now half an hour. It's like a refresher.
A refresher. Introduction refresher.
It's like the pit lane reporters. You have to throw the name up there so you know who's talking.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we should have that on. So I wanted to, before we get too far off into the weeds here, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So we got to be semi-organized here.
And who are you?
My name's Bob. But
Okay.
you can call me Steve.
Okay, Steve. Thanks for letting us know that, Steve.
So I was very excited, William, official AML graphic artist. I was very excited that when you started to tell me about the friendship you had created with Tom, because you guys had seen each other's videos. So you saw Tom's video first, right?
Yeah, it started with seeing his video, and then, like I says, you can comment down below in the video, and he would respond to the comment that you made. And sometimes guys don't even respond, but he had, and we'd kind of exchange a conversation about whatever the video is and subject to. But as we kind of talked back and forth, as we were emailing, I was working on my railroad. And one of the things that was stopping me from starting my railroad was myself and all the ideas and thoughts that I kept churning over. And Tom was a huge catalyst to kind of start the fire, if you will, and get me to start building. And I had track work laid on bench work, and I was building the actual, structure for setting the bench work on and doing all this stuff. And in conversation with Tom kind of went back and forth and just says, can you send some pictures? I'm like, well, I mean, some of it's in pieces and stuff. And he says, well, get some stuff together. I've got a project that I'm working on. And I'd like, to kind of see the progress that you're doing. You're in a small space. I'm in a 10 by 12 room. And with that conversation going back and forth, Tom really was one of the most influential driving forces to me starting the railroad. And I mean, I'm not kidding. I got into this house in 2009. And it wasn't until 2016, 17 where I started to kind of start working on a railroad, because I got other projects for the most part done in the home. And when Tom came along, he says he's working on a project and says, would you have any interest in, kind of showcasing the progress that you're working on your railroad? He says, yeah, sure. But that also gave a motivation for me to start working on it. And, as Tom kind of alluded to, he knows a lot of different guys that he's conversed with and talked to. And, we've talked about a lot of different things as well. But it really became a jump start for me to start my railroad. But I think Tom's, I guess it's his teaching technique, or even just his kind of persuasiveness, if you will, to kind of help modelers that are starting out. You get past those hurdles. And, Tom, you're a huge influence on that. But that's kind of where we started out and how we kind of headed down that road. And, I'm grateful for all the information that, Tom has provided me. I jokingly refer to my railroad room as the Klimoski suite, because if he didn't start, that ball rolling, I don't think that room would have gotten done, and the railroad probably wouldn't have even started.
So this is kind of a big deal. This is kind of one of the reasons when Bill told me all this is one of the reasons I wanted to get you two guys together in the same room, because I think this is what is the coolest new thing about the hobby. Like you were just saying, Tom, the friendships you've made and stuff like this. And here it is, you've helped William get his. I'm gonna go back and forth between William and Bill. I think that's what I'll do. It's like if I had two languages and I kept going back and forth. But anyways, I really wanted to talk about how, it's a big deal that now we can. You guys never would have met had it not been for social media. And Tom, you're making a huge impact on one modeler, and it's really cool. You can't get away from how cool this is.
Absolutely. Well, one of the other things is that one of the reasons why I reached out to Bill was that he was on your show, and I was modeling, and like a lot of people do, I have your show on as I'm modeling. And I've listened to the different guests that you have on, and he was talking, and I said, "Wow, this guy sounds really interesting. I mean, I really want to check out his layout." And I started checking it out. So I started while the show was going on, I found his channel and stuff. And then he started talking about some of the other YouTube channels that had influenced him. And he mentions that my channel influenced him. I was like, I'm shocked. Here's somebody that's I don't really know that well, and he's influenced by my YouTube channel. And so I said, well, I definitely have to reach out to him now, because apparently he's seen what I'm doing, and I was just honored that he would even mention what I've been doing. I've as we had talked before. That term "marginally adequate" was coined on one of the podcasts, and that's what I feel like a lot of times. My model railroading is moderately adequate. So I was honored that Bill liked my videos that much, and I do the videos just kind of for fun, and I enjoy the process, the creative process. My youngest son is into video and video production and things like that. So that's kind of where it started. If you wanted to know why did I do videos, there's a couple of videos out there on my old layout, which was in Miami. And I look back at those videos now, they weren't very good, but they were done by my son, who was the youngest son, who was in high school at the time. And I look at those videos now, and it's like, wow, I could have done a lot better on those. So each video, as I do them, I hopefully get a little bit better. I find things that work. I watch other people's videos, and I will have to say that Bill's YouTube channel is, to me, the best model railroad video channel out there. His content is phenomenal.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I know. Like, Bill, the other day, I'm sorry to cut you off, Tom, but really the show's all about listening to me. So,
right.
The other day, maybe a week or two ago, I was talking to Tony Cook, the editor of Model Railroad News, managing editor of Diesel Era, the creator of HO Collector Quarterly. He's got several books on the go. He's got about 1,000 irons in the fire. But anyways, Bill / William, the other day, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to Tony, and he says, "Have you ever seen this channel?" And I went, "Oh yeah, I know that guy. He's been on the podcast a couple of times." Is that the guy? Pete, what's the actual name of your YouTube channel?
Sue the Milwaukee Road. So it's SOO, the Milwaukee Road.
Right. I remember. I bet you didn't know that when you got on this particular podcast, the first 5 minutes would be me yelling at you, did you?
No, I didn't anticipate myself getting delayed as I did, but I get what I deserve.
You're right, Tom. I mean, this is one of the best. The quality. So how do you know? How did you learn to? I mean, this is what we really want to investigate, even if we have to have a couple of episodes. I mean, we really want to investigate. The you two guys really need to try to describe as best you can what an impact the social media has had on you, because it's obvious for both of you that, number one, like I say, you probably never would have met each other if neither one of you had a YouTube channel. And now you've developed. Have you either of you met in person? I guess not, probably. When did this start? When did this relationship start?
Boy, I guess I would bridge it back to, I mean, I've been watching his videos probably since 2016, somewhere in that range. I mean, I bet if I look back into the videos, my comments are in there at some point. And I was asking him questions about, I don't know if it was ballast or some of his modeling techniques. But we really kind of connected, I guess, more directly 2018, 2019-ish, somewhere in that window. It was around the time when we were on the podcast. Tom did a blog, I want to say it was at the end of 2019, and kind of featured my channel. And I have great respect for his stuff because I had featured his channel on my YouTube video. But I feel like the one thing, the videos in general that I put together, it's not about what one individual is doing in terms of this is the only technique you can use. This is the only way you can do it. I throw it out there as these are just some techniques. They're not always the right techniques. It just happens to be the ones I'm using. And then what else influences you? I'm obviously influenced by Tom's modeling. I like the detail. I like the scale speed. I've thought about that a lot because I've operated and found that guys' slot car operate so often that they just go so fast. And Tom's was just slow. It's relaxing. And I feel like that's an element that I go to my railroad to relax. I kick back, whether it's weathering or what you're doing. But in the social media arena, I feel like there's so much content that's bombarding us and it's nonstop. And how do you filter out what you like and you don't like? So I only do 10 episodes in a row, and I'm only doing updates on what I'm up to. I don't really pick and choose exactly what the season's going to have in store, because a lot of times if you see the first episode, I'll say, I'm going to cover this, and this. And I don't get to half of them. And I try to keep up with the stuff I've said I'm going to cover, but I really just like modeling and I'm sharing what I'm doing. So, I mean, I'm honored to even hear that Tom, considers it to be one of the best YouTube videos. And it's only because I'm just being genuine and as transparent as I can with what I'm doing. I do show mistakes. Not everything's perfect. And that's all of us. We all make mistakes to get better. As Tom said, his original videos weren't as good and they've gotten better. I don't feel like my original videos were as good. And I think they've gotten probably a little more quirky and a little more off the wall as time has gone on. But I think that's the fun of the hobby, getting to know these guys. There's been a lot of guys here in the Twin Cities that I've gotten to know through the social media. They're like, hey, you're the YouTube guy. I'm like, no, I just modeled the Sue the Milwaukee Road and you see it on YouTube. But Tom he's just been an influential modeler himself. And I think that YouTube arena and having conversations is comment on the videos, because we're on the other end. Well, I try to respond back to everybody that responds. I feel like Tom has done similar on his videos.
Well, but it's a big, that's one of the things I feel guilty about with the podcast. I mean, I get a lot of messages and I'm not, I respond sort of.
Eventually.
Maybe. Yeah. It's not, like I always say, I feel like my number one responsibility is to get the podcast out, and everything after that is a bonus. And, yeah, you have an unusual approach to this. You do your videos in seasons.
Yep.
So how did you come? So to explain it to people better, season 5, those 10 you do 10 videos in a season. And season 5, you started posting 2 months ago.
Yep.
And then
so
you did 10.
That whole mentality it gets me to model. So I end up starting, and I only do the 10 weeks because that's just 10 weeks where I kind of constantly try to find an hour a night or so to be able to model or weather or do whatever I'm doing. And I've done it just by seasons, just so I have a chunked a lot of time. When a season starts, it's going to be every Friday at noon. I upload the video. And then that way, if anybody's viewing or tuning in, they'll just know there'll be a new one on Friday. But it really motivates me to get some stuff done. I try to put together a few projects that I want to kind of work on or kind of get through. Like in season 5, it was the SDL 39s. And it was just thanks to Scale Trains. I had already recorded a whole bunch of footage of working on these Overland SDL 39s. I thought, oh boy, this is going to be great. I'm going to make the nicest one out there. And Scale Trains comes out and says, hey, we're gonna mass produce them. So as unfortunate as that was, I still followed through. I finished 3 of them, and I'm happy with how they've turned out. But it's not what I anticipated. I figured manufacturers weren't going to touch them.
When did you start? Like, it's a very unusual or a very unique approach to putting out videos, and that's a really cool idea. When was so you've had 5 seasons. So when was the first season? Do you remember?
Well, the first season actually started out, my dad had asked how to weather freight car wheels. And I thought, I've shown him before and I've actually talked it through in the past. And I thought I might as well just put a little video together of how I do it and I'll upload it. So I uploaded it and I shared it with him. And then I did a couple on connectors and some other stuff. And I thought, you know what? I'll put a few of these together and I'll just share them with other people. And I've told them at shows, I'll say, hey, I put one on YouTube and, you can check out how I weather freight car trucks, because it's easier to watch a video than it is to just listen to me talk at a show. So that's what started that little element of it. So I think it goes back to like 2015 or 2016, maybe in that window where I started to upload them. But I wasn't anticipating this whole seasons thing. That was just my way of organizing and managing how I was going to put some stuff together and also how to get some stuff done. And I think season 4 was about the railroad and the assembly of it. And that's actually kind of the progress that Tom and I, while I worked through my railroad and I recorded video of it, Tom and I were messaging back and forth on stuff he was working on, and I was sending him photos of my progress and all that stuff. And as that kind of evolved, I mean, our friendship continued to kind of, grow, and my railroad at the same time continued to grow. So it was kind of a whole thing, I guess the social media world, as well as emailing and, a lot of other stuff on top of that, but exchange of information, ideas. The seasons themselves actually just started up when I thought I'm just going to clump them together and I'll start uploading them that way. And that's really the only reason I do seasons, is just so I can focus on 10 weeks in a row of just modeling and putting some videos together, and away we go.
Okay, so you say you're coming out with season 5 now. You're starting to roll it out. Season 6 will be
probably in the fall. If I'm
in the fall time now. For your 10 shows or your 10 hours, whatever you're doing, between the end of season 5 and before you start, are you going to sit down, look at your layout, and figure out what you would like to do and feature, and then sort of script it out over the 10 shows, or you just kind of got an idea and then
kind of do
wing it?
that. I think you're right on that one, Bruce. I kind of do it that way. I'm actually working on, I do a season called the GN in 1970, and that's just covering my dad's railroad, because it was getting kind of confusing in some of the videos where I'd show my dad's railroad and then I'd show my railroad, and people would be like, what are you working on and where are you? So I separated the two. So even if you just Google GN 1970, you'll find my dad's railroad. And I've done videos there, but much like you asked about putting together like chunks or sections, I've written down a whole list of things that we're covering on his railroad, and I've recorded and I'm taking photos, and I'm compiling that season right now. And as I go through that process, I start assembling and going, okay, this will make an episode. I try to keep it under 15 minutes, and I just take some content and I throw it together. And then once I've compiled it, I'll have that 10, 15 minutes worth of footage and just call that an episode and move on to the next thing. We've put in backgrounds recently. We've fixed a problem spot in the staging area that I covered. And I went through just some of the little things that we're doing on his railroad, updating what he's been up to, because he's doing scenery and he's doing a lot of other stuff. But I go over there and I take video and kind of document some of the stuff we're working on, and then just take chunks of the stuff that I've documented and put them together to make an episode, which eventually turns into a season.
I was listening today. I was editing episode. I think it's the episode before this one, Tom. So it's the first Monday in August, I believe. And it was Chris Palmieri, who is starting a company called Home Shops, which is tangent freight cars of freelanced model railroads. But he mentioned about how his dad and uncle were members of Crescent City in New Orleans, and I'm starting to notice that more and more people that we interview will mention, well, I was doing it with my dad because he had a model railroad, like Jason Glocky. His dad has it. I think that this generation that we're in now, a lot of the model railroaders, a lot of people have the connection with their parents were involved in it. Like my son could say his dad was always a model railroader. I think that's kind of, and I don't think we had that so much back 30 or 40 years ago or 20 years ago.
But as the hobby, has it evolved enough that it makes it that more engaging? What got me back into it was my dad when he got DCC. We got it for Christmas for him. And that was a game changer for the interest level for me, because I do like the computer, the programming side. And I know a lot of older guys don't like that. But that is what shifted gears for me. I mean, that's what attracted me back into the hobby. I mean, we had been doing it my whole life. But when that came along, I'm like, wow, they got sound. They got, you can throw switches with your throttle. You can do so much with it. Has it evolved enough now to bring the interest of those younger guys in when you realize what you can do?
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it. And the other part of it is that you two guys both have smaller layouts. And I've been saying this for a while now. I thought of this all by myself. I've been saying for a while now, one of the beauties of social media and being able to connect like we can is you can have a small layout and still have the excitement of, okay, maybe you live 2 hours from anywhere, but you can still have the excitement of sharing it with people using all of the tools of YouTube and a blog and a website and everything like that. You're not stuck in your room doing it and waiting for somebody to come by and see it. So it's a lot easier to share your stuff with people now too, which I think helps push the hobby forward.
Well, and you can create so much of this stuff. I mean, I don't know what kind of equipment, Tom, you're using. When you create the videos, I'm using my iPhone and I'm using iMovie on my computer. I mean, I have After Effects and I have professional programs for video editing, but I can plug my phone in. The thing uploads the video right for me, right from my phone. and you can throw it together, put subtitles, put all that content on there. So anybody that looks at production and says, oh, well, you're probably using some fancy software. It's not fancy at all. It's an iPhone and iMovie. They come with the computer, and you're putting it together, putting it online and sharing it with people, which that's what my end goal is to share with others, to show you what you can do. And I mean, I was inspired by Tom's videos that he did, and I think others can be inspired just by seeing what guys are up to.
The thing of it is, Bruce, the one thing of it is, I feel like with small layouts, I mean, they're becoming more and more common, and they're becoming, with the proto throttle, you can get a lot more fun out of having a smaller layout. But really, exactly. The problem is there's no, I mean, if there was a book out there about, small layouts and how to build small layouts and things like that, I think it would really help people. But unfortunately, there isn't.
There might be.
Well, might there be?
Yes.
Well, absolutely. Oh, you don't say.
Yes. Well, that was the project.
Do tell.
That was the project that Bill was talking about. I contacted a couple of my friends, and Bill was one of them. And I asked him if he wouldn't mind contributing some content to a book that I was going to write. A few years ago, I was approached by Kalmbach. They were looking for some new writers for whatever reason. I was honored that they even asked me to write a book. And they said, well, submit us a proposal and we'll see how it goes. So I wrote up an outline and submitted it and didn't hear anything for a while. And then lo and behold, a few months later, they contacted me back and said, yes, we're going to, go ahead with your project. And the idea for my book is building the right size layout. And I chose the term right sized rather than small, because for some reason small has a bad connotation. It's like, well, my layout is only this size. It's only a small switching layout. And to me, those layouts are sometimes more interesting than the larger layouts. I like a small, well thought out operational layout similar to what Bill has and some of my other friends. To me, that is what I really enjoy. So I decided to write a book on designing and operating a small switching layout. And the book is going to be released by Kalmbach around the first part of September. So you can purchase the book at the Kalmbach Hobby Store. That's www.kalmbach, that's KALMBACH hobbystore.com. And look for the book called Building the Right Size Layout, Designing and Operating a Small Switching Layout. You'll see one of my Georgia Northeastern locomotives on the cover. And I hope you take a look at it. But I cover a lot of things on the layout. The first chapter is dedicated towards deciding what is the right size layout. What are your operational goals? What are your crew size? How much time do you want to spend operating? One of the things that I bring up in the book is some time studies. How long does it take to switch out a car? How long does it take to switch out and respot a car? Well, if you start adding those up, you figure out, well, if I only want a 45-minute operating session, I really don't need that many industries, because as I add up the time for switching out these cars, I've got a 45-minute to an hour operating session with just a few industries. And there's some advantages to a smaller layout, a lot easier to maintain. You don't get bogged down with this monster layout that you just can't seem to ever get motivated to finish. The tasks are smaller, so it's instead of ballasting 600 feet of track, you're only ballasting maybe 50 feet of track. So that makes that task go a little bit faster. If you don't enjoy ballasting, you can kind of power through it. And then I've got also a chapter on track planning. Looking to the prototype for ideas, staging, different types of staging, some curve minimums and easements and radius of turnout minimums, selecting some industries. So a little bit of what you want to do. I'm not telling you how to design a layout. I'm telling you some of the things to think about. And then I cover a little bit in the next chapter 3 on layout construction.
Slow down. This book, how many pages is this book?
It's 112 pages.
Well, you can't cover 112 pages in like 5 minutes, so we're still stuck.
Sure we can.
No, we can't. No, we can't. So how long had you been? They reached out to you. They to ask you to be try writing a book.
Right.
And that probably kind of caught you way off guard because how many books have you written in your life, Tom?
Let me total that up. Carry the one to 0.
Okay.
I have not written any books.
But you've had several articles in Model Railroader.
That's correct.
How many?
As of this recording, I've had 10 articles in various Model Railroader publications. That's Model Railroad Planning, Great Model Railroads, and the regular magazine Model Railroader.
Okay, cool. So these guys reach out. Kalmbach reaches out to you, ask you for a book. Did you already kind of have this idea in the back of your head, or?
A little bit. It was one of those things that was like, eventually one of these days, I thought I would like to write a book or try writing a book. As they say, the good news is you're going to write a book. The bad news is you got to write a book. And I got into it. It's like, okay, it's just like they said. Well, it's like just putting some articles together and stringing them together into what? Well, no, it was a lot more work than I ever imagined, and I have the utmost respect for these guys like Tony Custer and Jeff and all these other guys that do these books every year. I'm not going to say I'm not going to write another one, but I need a little while off to recover from this one because I dedicated quite a bit of time to it. A lot of it was getting photographs from other photographers. A lot of new photos you're going to see in the book that have never been published before. I have a really good friend that enjoys taking prototype photos. I used a lot of his photos in the book. They've never been seen before. Maybe a few have appeared on railroad picture archives, but he took some photos that I had requested. Fantastic photographer, and just these photos jump off the page at you, and they really illustrate some of the points that I'm making in the book. A lot of the other.
All right, time out.
Yes.
Does this guy have a name?
Yes, his name is Keith Arms.
Keith Arms, ARMS.
ARMES.
And would we find his photos anywhere on the internet?
Railroad Picture Archives. He's got lots of photos on there, and he is a fantastic photographer. He is shooting. If you look at these photos, he's got different cars, locomotives. You could search under Railroad Picture Archives or railpictures.net. I think he mostly uses the Railroad Picture Archives. Punch in his name. He's got thousands of photos. I can't remember exactly how many he's got now, but he is shooting these trains as they're going by.
I got questions. Calm down.
Sure.
Didn't you were a captain with the Miami Fire Department, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
We're not on fire here. We can slow down a little bit.
Okay.
So what did you say his last name was Arms, his first name was?
Keith.
And how did you meet Keith Arms?
I bet you couldn't guess. It's through my website and through my YouTube channel. He contacted me and we started talking and emailing each other, and he came over to operate the layout. He's not that much into model railroading. He's more into prototype photography, but he had seen the videos and other things that I've done, and that interested him. And he had also taken some pictures. He lives in the area. He lives near Atlanta, and he had taken some photos of the Georgia Northeastern and figured I'd like to see those, which of course I did.
So somebody try to convince me this hobby isn't going to explode. Here's a rail fan that is primarily a rail fan, and like all rail fans, almost they all have at least a passing interest in model railroading. And so he finds your website. Did he ever mention how he found your website?
No, he didn't.
So he finds your website. You guys start to converse. He ends up coming over to operate your layout. And the next thing you know, you've struck up that friendship. And now you're using a whole bunch of his photos in a book. Like none of this stuff. I dare anybody to tell me.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Yes.
It is. Yeah, I dare anybody to tell me this hobby is. And I coined a new phrase. This is going to be the catchphrase of the hobby going forward.
Are we going to set up a poll on this on the fans page?
We could, if you'd like to, or somebody else wants to. But I'm telling you, this is the catchphrase of the hobby going forward. And we all love the hobby's going to explode, and we're all going to be covered in model railroad goo.
Yes.
The next catchphrase that's going to sweep the nation is model railroading. It's younger than you think.
Oh, well, there you go.
because I went on one of my they said something about, they were talking about the hobby dying, and I said, can we stop talking about that, because that is old news.
That's been news since I started the hobby when I was 12.
And it's not news anymore. The model railroading, it's younger than you think, and it's all because of everybody now. Like Bill and Tom are a classic example. Now they've, Bill's contributed to a book that Tom's writing, and Tom's got. This is just this.
Well, you look at all the young guys involved. You think you got Bill, Tom. You've got guys like Mike Burgett with his Chesapeake, Ohio fantastic load. He's a young guy. Dave Abelys, he's no old guy. You got Shane Mason. You've got there's tons of young people in this hobby, and it's time maybe you can license that slogan to the NMRA.
No, you know what? I'm going to give it to the world, just because that's the way the AM,
royalty free.
That's the way the AML. That's the way the AML Nation works. Just go out there. I just don't want.
Yeah, it's true. It's and you see, there's just the last few days, when looking on some of the social media, guys are whinging and whining about blue box cars. The Atherm. We need Atherm back. Yeah, okay. Get over it, pal. They were gone. They're never coming back. So do what you want. Let's get on with it. But there's so many young people in the hobby. We've talked about this before. You go to Springfield as an example. Look at the show there. You see how many young people are in there partaking in that show. It's not all old guys with beards and walkers and stuff like that. There's a pile of young people in this.
It never was. The difference now, it was always the same. People would be introduced to the hobby at a younger age, primarily. Is 80 to 90% of most people are introduced to the hobby at a younger age, and they just grow through it. And it's like, it's never been all old guys. It's always been people of all ages. It's just that now everybody can connect. And
that's the key thing right now, is the technology. Everybody can get. There'd be no AML Nation without it.
That's the other thing. Bill, there is no way you are making these videos just with iMovie.
That's what I'm editing with. I mean, my audio that I'm using, I am using a Rode microphone. So the audio when I talk, it's got a condenser mic, so it ends up sounding a lot better. But when it really comes down to the actual editing, it is in iMovie, and I do shoot it with my iPhone. You
do all this editing with iMovie. Holy mackerel!
Yep.
You're a star at this stuff.
Well, I think it's kind of fun. I mean, there are a lot of limitations. Like, I can do a lot more in After Effects and some of the other programs, but I think just for the ease of, I can go video something on my railroad or at my dad's. I can just plug my phone in, and then it pops up on the screen. I just import it into iMovie and chop it up, and away we go.
Yeah, you're doing a hell of
a... And what are you using for your videos, Tom?
I use... originally, I started using the one that comes with standard Microsoft, and they stopped using it. Wouldn't run with my computer anymore, so I use CyberLink, which is a program that I bought. I think it was less than $100. It's a basic video editing program. The thing is, it takes me a while. I'm self-taught. I never took any classes on video editing or photography or anything like that, so it takes me a little while to figure out how to operate the program. But I try to keep the video short. I try to change shots a lot, and I look to TV and movies for kind of how they put things together. So that's one of the biggest things I think with model railroad videos is keep them moving, keep them interesting. And that's what Bill does so well. Is his videos are never boring. They're always changing shots and different things, and he has different segments and stuff. Mine aren't quite that dynamic, but I do try to move from different shots so that it doesn't sit there and just watch a train run by and you see all 50 cars in the train go by. After you see the locomotive and the first 4 or 5 cars, I'll cut away to a different shot or a different angle or do different transitions and fades and stuff. I did a clinic at one of the RPM meets, and it talked about video production and model railroad video. It's an art form. Every director has their own style. Every person that does video has their own style. My style is not necessarily somebody else's.
Time out.
Yes, sir.
So you did a clinic at an RPM meet about video production.
That's correct.
And how did that take place? How did they ask you to do which RPM meet was it?
Cocoa Beach
down in Florida.
Yes.
And so was this your idea to do this video, or did somebody or this clinic, or did somebody ask you to do a clinic about that?
The previous year, I had done a clinic on my Georgia Northeastern layout, which covers prototype and modeling. And then the next year, I wanted to go ahead and present another clinic. So I came up with the idea of presenting a clinic on doing videos, just kind of showing what I've learned and a few tips and techniques. The thing is, again, it's an art form. So what I'm doing is not necessarily for everyone. But I've watched enough videos, and some of the points that I made were taken well by the group that was in attendance there. I hope that the videos are entertaining to watch, and most of the comments I've gotten have said that. But there was a few back when I first started doing some of the videos. One of the comments was, "Stop doing so many fades. You're driving me crazy." So I was doing fades between each shot, and I went back and looked at it and went, "Yeah, you're right. That is annoying." So I just went to hard cuts between them, because I started watching TV shows a little bit differently. I was watching how do they cut these things together. And as an example, when you're seeing two people have a dialogue, there's not a camera square away where one person's on the right, one person's on the left, and they stay there for the whole 5 minutes of their conversation. They shoot over the guy's shoulder, then they show the other guy's shoulder, and then they go back and forth, and they'll do a different shot, or the camera will pan around. And so that's what I started doing with some of my model railroad videos. As I started using a slider, which is I made a homemade slider out of some pipe. I had seen James McNabb did a video, and it looked like a drone shot. This thing was perfectly smooth, and it was rising up as the train was coming underneath it. And I was like, wow, that is really cool. So I asked him how he did it. He says, I got to have a slider. I was like, what's that? Well, I started doing a Google search, and YouTube is your friend. And guess what? There's videos out there on how to make sliders for your home use.
And so not the ones from White Castle, though, right, Tom?
That's correct. Not the ones that'll give you indigestion. That's correct. This is a slider that allows the camera to move smoothly, and it's similar to putting a railroad car on a track.
All right,
you build a little track.
Time out.
Yes, sir.
Time out. This podcast literally is just going to become the Angry Podcaster, because do you guys have any idea how much information we have covered in the first hour of this podcast? Now we're talking about sliders for video, creating videos, and it's like, and somebody named James McNabb, and on and on and on. And I mean, it's like, you guys are giving me a headache here. My head is starting to hurt. I can't even keep up with the two of you guys.
Oh, this is fascinating stuff, though.
Well, it is fascinating stuff, but if it's just going to annoy me, like, we have so much to cover, Bruce. How do we cover all this stuff?
Well, I'll throw a question out for the two of them, seeing as they kind of brought up. If there is somebody out there who is dabbling with the idea of wanting to shoot some video, be it layout video or instruction video or something like that, what kind of words of advice would you give these people to, avoid getting totally frustrated and slitting the wrist or something like that? Like what are the, and both of you have excellent product out there I've looked at, and it's, like in general, what do people do wrong if they were starting out?
Okay. So, Bill, you go first, and then Tom, you go, and then Bill, you rebuttal, and you've each got 3 minutes for each segment. So go, Bill.
All right. I would say that honestly, the biggest thing that you can do to improve your videos is audio. And I did, if you type in GN 1970, season 2, episode 4, I cover what I use for audio. And I think that's a huge part of it, because if you have clean audio, it's a lot more pleasing to listen to. I think that's one of the number one things that a person can do. And there are very reasonable options out there. And like I said, I covered a few in a video that I had done, but I feel like that's one of the best things that you can do. And I won't even use my full 3 minutes. I think audio is one of the best things that you can do to improve your videos. We'll turn it over to Tom.
Cut, and cut some more. And when you think you got enough, cut it again, because what ends up happening is the videos end up being too long and they become boring. And if you look, I look at the video stats, and typically I get about 75% of the people watch the first couple of minutes, and then after that it drops off pretty fast. So I try to keep the videos around 10 minutes or less. There's a few that go over because I just couldn't cut them down enough. But I watch to see how much it drops off. And typically I get about 50% of the people have dropped off after the first 4 or 5 minutes, and then those people stick around to the end of the video. So if you have something really important that you want to show it in the first couple of minutes. You need a hook. You need to grab their attention. If not, then they'll just click off. And you want to do a lot of different. I'll go to the other side. Yes, the audio is important, but the video needs to be interesting to watch. Don't stay on one shot too long. Try to do a lot of cuts. What I did during that clinic was I showed my timeline, which showed how many cuts, how many little segments were in like a 4 or 5 minute period. And I showed there was probably 40 or 50 different cuts or shots in that 4 or 5 minutes. You want to keep it moving, keep it interesting, because people have very short attention spans. They'll just click off. So that's probably the biggest thing is editing and cutting things down, keeping it interesting. And like I've said before, Bill does a fantastic job of that, because never once have I went, oh, this is too boring, I'm going to click off. He always keeps the content moving, and as soon as that segment ends, he transitions right to the next one, and it just keeps your attention.
So, Bill, go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say. So, well, you go ahead. You tell me what you were going to say, and then we'll go from there.
I was going to say I agree with them 100% on. I mean, editing and audio are obviously key elements in any video production. And what I've done is, like Tom said, you got to get their interest right away. So a lot of times in the first 30 seconds, I do a little, in this episode, I'm going to cover these 3 or 4 things. And at the very end, I started to do, and I did it kind of just jokingly, but it was the voice of the railroad industry. Whenever I was at flea markets or was talking to, fellow modelers, there's always somebody griping or complaining about something. I referred to them as the curmudgeon. And this thing had kind of evolved over time. And now I put it at the end of the episode. So it's the curmudgeon's gripe of the week. And it's just a cranky old guy that I use a Snapchat filter, and it gives me kind of a goatee and some sunglasses. And I just complain about just something random in the hobby. And it would be, the curmudgeon might be griping that, all right, you're sitting here listening to this podcast and these guys are rambling on. They just ramble on. They don't ever have anything to say. And you get to the end of it and you think, did I learn anything right there? No, I didn't. And that's the curmudgeon's gripe of the week. So I do that at the end of the episode, and it caught on. I tried to get rid of it and do away with it at one point. People says, where's the curmudgeon? Where's the curmudgeon? I thought, oh, boy, people like the complaining and griping, and it's a tongue-in-cheek look at the hobby. But I put that then at the end in hopes that people either fast forward to it and watch that little 30-second snippet, but adding, just little different elements that kind of keep it light and keep it funny. I know I'm not a comedian, but I always try to add a little bit of humor into the episodes as well.
So how did you learn to do such good editing, or is this just did these videos just come to you naturally?
It's a lot like Tom said. I pull from movies, I pull from TV, and just kind of taking note. I mean, I'm a big fan of. I used to watch American Pickers, and I think there's Deadliest Catch, and there's some of those Discovery type shows, and those that are on Discovery or on History, they do a good job keeping people's interest enough to watch people sift through other people's garbage or watch them catch crab out in Alaska. But I draw from a lot of that. I think a lot of times I also want to take what we see on our model railroad and bring you kind of into the scene or that world. What is hard, I think, about the hobby is that we don't ever look at our models as close as we show them on the videos. And that then means I have to either improve the modeling and make it look better to look good in the video, because sometimes after I've taken a picture, I'll look at it and think, oh, gee, that number board's a little crooked or something's a little off. And I'm editing my modeling through the lens of the video, so it kind of helps me in that regard. But I think a lot of it comes down to seeing stuff that I've seen and how, like Tom said, I smash cut most of it together where I just chop it and it's just a cut right to the next scene. And that a lot of times for a viewer, their mind doesn't see the transition. It just jumps to the next scene and jumps to the next thing. You don't realize how it's happening, but I see it in movies and video, and that's what I apply.
Okay, cool. And I was going to say something. Damn, can't remember what it was. So I'm going to be cutting this part out. I can't. You guys are just too much. The two of you are just too much. You're just. Can you? Oh yeah. Can you imagine what? Man, if we could find everybody that's like everybody, there's got to be thousands of guys out there doing this kind of stuff, just having all kinds of fun. I mean, video making is like a hobby and a hobby. It just makes this hobby grow and grow and grow. So, Tom, earlier you said, we got to get back to your book, but earlier you said a fellow named James McNabb. How did you Who's he, and what's that all about?
Well, he is one of the Iowa Interstate modelers that I've come across, which was met through Scott Thornton, the Mr. Proto Throttle.
Yeah.
Introduced me to Joe and to James McNabb, and James recently had a series on Model Railroader Video Plus, showing his new layout, and he does professionally what I'm trying to do, which is video editing. He does professional production for TV, sports, and a bunch of other stuff. So he had some videos out, and I looked at his videos, and they're fantastic editing and camera work and all that other stuff. So I kind of reached out to him, and again, this whole thing just kind of, I met somebody who meets somebody, and it just kind of keeps going and keeps going. You meet somebody else, and then I've corresponded with James some, and he has a small switching layout, which is what I like, and we just started talking about his layout, and when he started redesigning his new track plan, I made some comments and went back and forth with him on some things, and super nice guy, very helpful, just like most of the guys out there. Same thing with Joe. He gave me the settings that I needed for the Proto Throttle to make my locomotives run more realistically. I was able to set up a speed curve where the locomotive tops out at about 13 miles an hour. So you can crank the throttle all the way to notch 8, and the locomotive will only do about 13 miles an hour. And that was kind of a eureka moment, if you will, for some people that were operating the Proto Throttle and using it for a switching layout. You're able to throttle up and play the upper notches so that it sounds like you're really working hard, but the locomotive's not going that fast. So you don't have to use the drive hold, which is on the lock sound decoders, or if you don't have drive hold on some other manufacturers.
All right, you're
decoder.
doing it again.
Sorry. Can't help it.
Now we're into Proto Throttle and the drive hold on Soundtrack's decoders.
Actually, not Soundtracks. The drive hold is on the ESU lock sound.
Well, okay. See, that's my point. Whatever. Like you're spewing out so much information. It's like how now we got the two of us.
Those who know will know.
Well, yeah, but our job here, Bruce, is to let everybody know. So we're gonna have to do another. At least another show, so we can not.
They can give him a 15-minute shorty to.
I know.
Throw in how to set up the Proto Throttle.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down. I'm writing that down right now, Tom.
Well, while you write that down, Lionel, I do have to say, Tom, one of the things that we did exchange back and forth was setting up the Proto Throttle. I was using Digitrax and trying to get mine working, and Tom's helpfulness that was able to just walk me through. I'd send him photos, I'd send him videos. He'd email me back and he's like, try this, try that. And we're throwing things at it. And it turned out that my password in my Wi-Fi had a dash in it. And that dash was not liked in the code of the Proto Throttle. And it was probably about maybe a 20-hour venture for myself to try to get this thing working. But Tom was very, helpful and throwing ideas out saying, hey, try this. And he even said at one point, the last resort, and I don't want you to do this, but maybe it's your password on your Wi-Fi. I change it, Proto Throttle works. I had to go through and change my phone and all the other passwords and all the devices and computers in the house, but it was worth it. At the end, it got the Proto Throttle working, which made things a lot more fun.
A password on your Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Was screwing up the Proto Throttle.
Yep.
That's another show altogether. All right, let's get back to this book, because that's one of the reasons we're here, isn't it, Tom?
One of the reasons, yeah.
Yeah. Man, you guys. Now, you know what? We started out, right from the get-go, Bill, you annoyed me. I had to spend the first 5 minutes of this podcast yelling at you. And now we're here an hour and 20 minutes later. And now I feel like I got to yell at you guys again because you're throwing so much stuff at me. I feel like I'm in one of those little tiny hobby shops where you feel like if you don't buy something before you leave, you've missed out. You guys have got so much information. It's like I feel like I'm missing out on stuff, trying to keep track of everything. I feel like I'm going down the Blue Ridge Mountains on Interstate 79, and the brakes have blown out on my tractor trailer.
Well, that was one of the reasons why I decided to write a book. I've got so much stuff in my head, and people were asking me kind of the same questions over and over again. They were reaching out and contacting me through the YouTube channel and stuff. I was like, I should write all this stuff down somewhere, and that kind of gave me the idea for the book. Is a lot of the questions or a lot of things that I address in the book were questions that people were asking me over and over again about, what about this? What about that? What about that? So I was like, it'd be nice if it was all written down in one place where somebody could just pick up a book and read it. So that's kind of where the idea for the book came from, was to try to put this down and to promote the use of, or the building of smaller layouts. Because sometimes I think that gets overlooked in the hobby. A lot of times they're not highlighted enough in the magazines, and people for some reason feel like it's not. Well, it's only a small layout, And that was one of the interesting comments that I have, is when people see my layout, they've seen my layout so many times on videos and stuff, and when they come over here, I'm always worried that they're going to see it and they're going to go, "Oh, this is a disappointment." I was expecting a lot more. Well, what they do is they walk into the room and they go, "Wow, it's a lot smaller than I thought." Which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but they only see the segments that I show on the videos because I'm tightly cropped and I can kind of control what people can see. But when you see the room in totality, it's a pretty small space. And then the next comment is, "You've really done a lot with the space that you have," which I take as a compliment, because it's about as efficient use of the space as you can get and still feel comfortable in here with it not feeling too tight or too small. So that was some of the things that I put down into the book.
Do you feel like, does your wife know that you've gone into her craft room to put a staging yard in her craft room?
Yes, that was negotiated. I had to have trackage rights, and there was an agreement signed, and all that other stuff. And it also involved me building a greenhouse for her plants. So there was some payback for having a temporary staging cassette in her craft room.
Are you familiar with? I got to get back to the book, but are you familiar with what Bill has done in this the bedroom where he has that L-shaped shelf layout?
Very much so, because his layout is one of the prototype-inspired track plans that I have in the book.
Isn't it just unbelievable what he's done in that room?
Fantastic. I mean, the Murphy bed. That's why he calls it the Klimoski suite, because I've told him that's where I'm staying. I'm coming to visit one day, and I'm going to stay in the Klimoski suite, because that is the ideal room for someone who enjoys trains and operating layouts.
Bill, are you going to go see the Georgia Northeastern someday?
I told him if I was within 2 hours of wherever he's at, I'm going to make the venture for sure. And he's always welcome up here if he makes it up to Minneapolis. The room has got his name on it, so he's always welcome. And I'm not so sure he'll necessarily fall asleep. He may just be switching all night, so he's not even going to need to use it.
That's true. Bill has done a fantastic job on his track plan and his layout. It's just unbelievable what he's done and how he was able to adapt the prototype plan to his, we'll say, reasonably sized space. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to include his track plan and prototype photos in the book. So yeah, there's a few pictures of his layout. Unfortunately, a couple of the photos got cut in the editing process, but you still get an idea of the room that he has and how it's laid out. And then you see the track plan and then his prototype photos.
So what's the name of this book exactly?
Building the Right-Sized Layout.
Building the Right-Sized Layout. So it's basically about, and so you said the first chapter is about trying to decide what it is you want.
Yes.
And then it goes, second chapter is?
Track planning.
All right. And did you, so how many chapters? 112 pages. Does Kalmbach have it? I hope Kalmbach learned something from Dave Abeley's Signals and Interlocking's book. We sold that one out in 29 days.
He did a fantastic job on that book.
I know, but one of the reasons the book sold out so well is because of the podcast. So I hope they're paying attention this time around. And I don't have a problem saying that either. So how many chapters in this book? So
there's 8 chapters.
Okay, and then after, what else do you cover?
Well, after I kind of go.
You know what? After you tell me about each chapter, take a pause so I can ask you a question.
Okay. So we covered the first 3, which was, like you said, deciding what your operational goals are and whether a smaller layout is right for you. There's a few times that a larger layout is the best decision, but understand what you're getting yourself into when you decide that. And one of the things that people don't talk about a whole lot is it's not necessarily the size of the layout that makes it complex. It's the number of turnouts. So you could have a large layout and only have a few turnouts, so that you have a long distance running between stations and only have a few turnouts. That actually is kind of a smaller layout because it's not that complex. You can take a small layout and put as the time saver switching puzzle is, there's a lot of turnouts, there's a lot of stuff in a small, and that becomes a kind of a complicated layout because it's very small, but there's a lot of turnouts, there's a lot of things that you're trying to do in a very small space. So
how did you figure that out? Like, now we should remind everybody, you had a previous layout when you lived in Miami. You were, like, as we said earlier, you were a fire captain in Miami, so you had a previous layout.
Yes.
And how big was it?
It was in my garage. About 18 foot by 18 foot. It was around the walls. It had some removable sections. That layout was featured in a special issue, How to Build More Layout in Less Space. And the article was called One Layout, One Mustang, which is kind of an interesting title for the article. But the reason the one Mustang is because the garage housed my wife's Mustang.
Where was this article?
It was in that special issue. You can still get the
special issue of what?
It's Model Railroader. It's a Model Railroader. It's called How to Build More Layout in Less Space.
So it was okay. So there was
a Combach. It was done by Andy Sporandio.
What year? What year?
2010.
Oh my God!
And it's still it's still available if you go to the Combach hobby store and put in How to Build More Layout in Less Space. That you can still buy that issue.
So it was an issue, kind of like, it was like what's Tony Custer's yearly thing?
Model Railroad Planning.
Yeah, so it's like that. It was like that. It was a special issue
it was a special issue, but it was only a one-time special issue. Right. Model Railroad Planning is an annual. So
I understand.
You get one of those every year.
You're starting to annoy me, Tom. I understand that. I was just looking for an example.
Okay.
There's way too. You know what? This is reminding me of when I was in high school. This is why I fell behind in high school. Can we just stick to one algebra problem at a time here, please? Okay, so this layout was featured. I don't think you ever told me that before. This layout was featured in this special issue. One layout. What is it called? One layout, one Mustang, or something?
That's correct. One layout, one Mustang.
Now, how many cylinders? What size motor did you have in this Mustang?
It's a six-cylinder.
Okay, well, that's two more than four.
Yes, it moves well enough.
Absolutely. You still have it?
No, but we have another Mustang. Okay. My wife really likes convertible Mustangs.
Okay, well, how many cylinders in this one?
6-cylinder also.
That's two more than four. I'm speaking to Chris Adams right now. Mr. Fitness, also known as Mr. Fitness. He has a Mustang, very cool Mustang. He has a really cool Mustang. But it's got that EcoBoost thing, It's like the new stuff with it's like, just give me 8 cylinders and 4 4 on the floor and I'm good to. Okay, so all right, so you built this. So you're speaking from experience, because it's kind of really cool what you're saying here. We are never going to cover everything, and we're going to have to come back and do some more of this. But it's really cool what you're saying is a layout is determined by how complex it is based on the number of turnouts. And how did you come up with that analogy? What was it that, when was the light bulb that went off that you figured that out?
As I was writing the book, I was, hearing different comments and stuff, and I think it was a comment made somewhere similar to that. I don't know that I'm the originator of the turnouts that determine the complexity of the layout or the size of the layout. When I was writing the chapter, I was trying to decide, how do you call a layout small, medium, and large, or is there such a thing? It gets difficult to kind of group these layouts into sizes. So that was one of the things, and actually that kind of enlightenment came after I had already written the chapter, so it's not specifically in there in those words, but I'm trying to decide what is a small or what is a medium-sized layout, what's a large layout, and that kind of eureka moment came as I started talking to other people and looking at their layouts and seeing how complex they were, or lack of complexity, which made them a simple layout. A friend of mine, Jared Harper, has a layout. He's in Athens, Georgia, and it's the Santa Fe Alma branch. and it's a somewhat of a large layout, but it's very simple in its operating scheme because you operate one train. The train picks up the cars in one town and works its way up the line. A lot of the areas are just the track running through Kansas, which is the area that he's modeling. There's a little town, you do some switching, you work your way all the way up to the end of the line, you turn the locomotive on a Y, do some more switching, return back to where you started, do some more switching there. It takes about 3 hours to do that operating session. Very simple. One train. Right. He runs a three-person crew. It's in a 20-something by 20-something room. So it's a large layout, but it operates like a much smaller layout.
Yeah, I like that. I've actually, I've always thought if I was ever going to rebuild a layout, I would just have a single line going around the room. I'd like a bigger room with a single line going around the room, completely scenic, the layout. And because scenery is so cheap and easy to do, I would go back and then start cutting in sidings and industries. But I would already have a completed scenic railroad to run around the room. I always thought that would be cool. So you're kind of hitting something I've thought about before. Is some layouts, the complexity of the layout can be determined like by the number of turnouts you have on it. I like that. That's pretty good.
Yes, and if you want to see more on Jared's layout, I have a video on it, which is on my YouTube channel. So you can look that up, go to the videos page, and you'll see, I believe it's titled Jared Harper's Alma Branch or something like that. You can look for it. It's an operating session that I went to, filmed during the operating session, and just tried to highlight the layout for other people that haven't had a chance to see it and operate on it.
Yeah, you can just search Santa Fe Alma Branch. I already looked it up on YouTube here and was watching some of it. It's a cool little setup.
It's really fun. And like I said, he runs a three-person crew, and he uses the actual switch list. Jared is very much into the prototype. I joke with him that he models every branch on the tree. If there's a tree there, he puts a tree there, and he models how many branches were on that tree. I mean, he's very detailed, and he does a lot of research on the prototype. This is about as prototypical as you can get. Obviously, he had to make some concessions because he's got to bend the track around to fit the room. But it is amazing. The detail, the buildings, everything is exactly the way it was back in those days, using prototype photos. There's a cattle ranch on there where they use some kind of buggy seat for the guys to sit and kind of count the cows or do whatever it is that they did. So he has that modeled on his layout, and really nice work. So much fun to operate on that layout. I really enjoy going down and operating there. So I reached out to him and asked, would it be possible for me to come and operate on his layout? And that was just about the time he was starting to do operating sessions. So just contacting him because I had seen him post some photos and stuff on the one of the Prototype Rails layouts forums that I belong to.
So you met him on social media?
That's correct, yes.
I
think we're seeing a pattern here, right?
Yeah, this hobby is going to explode, and we're all going to be covered in model railroad goo. This hobby is going to explode. Dave Abeleys, are you listening to that? Just like I told you, your book was going to sell out within a year, 29 days. This hobby is going to explode, and we're all going to be covered with model railroad goo. So, okay, we come to the end of this, but we're going to have to go in depth. We're going to have to, again, do another podcast, primarily where I'm yelling at you guys. And about...
Perfect.
Yeah. More about the book, because we didn't cover enough about the book. Give us the name again.
Building the Right-Sized Layout.
And it's 112 pages, and it's available on Kalmbach in just a few weeks. It's available at Kalmbach on September 1st, which is about 2.5 weeks from now. And you're going to be able... How much does it cost?
$21.99.
Okay. And you know what? When we interviewed Dave Abeleys about his... Like, I know, Tom, you've listened to all the podcasts and some of them twice. But when we interviewed Dave Abeleys about his book and we got him on here, hey, he sent me an autographed copy.
We might be able to work something out. How's that for commitment?
Yeah.
Sure.
I see this guy rolling up with the fire. What do you call it? A squad? What do you call it?
We've got multiple trucks, so you can pick whatever truck you want.
No, but I mean, when you were the captain of a firehouse and you went out to what did you call your, like, 2 or 3 trucks roll up? What do you call your Your crew. What is the name that a captain calls his crew? Like, is it a squad? Is it what is it?
Well, we were an engine company. I was engine 3.
It's in a company. Okay.
Yeah.
They roll up and they roll up and some guy's garage is on fire and he says, "Hey, can you put this out?" And Tom goes, "We can work something out." Oh my God! I think you guys have taken the 10 years off my. There's so much to cover. We have like this thing here with the drive hold on the proto throttle on the ESU Loke Sound decoder. I mean, that's probably 30 minutes worth of gabbing right there. Like, you guys pack a lot of. You guys have got a lot of information rolling around in your head. Okay? So let's finish up like this. We need a title for this episode because I thought it was going to be about Tom and his book, but it seems to be about everything and anything. We need a title for this episode. Somebody help me here.
Is it going to be Recording the Right Size Podcast?
Yeah. Boom. Oh, man, I love that.
Perfect.
Episode 1, I think it's 175, Recording the Right Size Podcast.
Beautiful.
Boom. I love that. Yeah, you got all right. So, what do you get?
Some free AML merchandise swinging your way.
Yeah, no. I'm not. Yeah, it's a nice try. Okay, so Bill / William, what are you working on right now? Let's leave everybody with what you're working on right now. What's happening?
What I'm working on right now is I'm weathering a air slide for my dad for Father's Day. So he'll have already received it by then, but he's seen pictures of it and thinks it's mine. But I'll give it to him for Father's Day. That's what I'm in the process of working on.
So you're getting a lot out of this hobby by the interaction you and your dad are having together. So your dad must be really active in the hobby, is he?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that he's probably the most influential person. He's introduced me, obviously, to a lot of other modelers just through people that he had gotten to know over the years. And I think he is, without question, probably the most influential person across the board for not just my interest in, the model railroading, but even into music and everything else. Just, he's all right. So I was born in 1980. So I think he was 20 years old. So we're close in age. So when people see us at shows, they think we're brothers, and we kind of act like that at sometimes.
Okay. So you're 41 and your dad's 61.
That would be good.
I could be your dad too. Man, there's a scary thought.
Stay on task.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so your dad is pretty active but I don't want to slide over that. So your dad, what kind of layout does your dad have?
He models the Great Northern in 1970. It's referred to as the Wilmer Sub, and that's basically just out of the Twin Cities area heading west out of Minneapolis.
And so has he done it as long as you can remember? Ever since you were...
So this particular railroad, it's built since about 1991, 92, and he had another railroad prior to that only took up half of the basement, and the basement is about a 20 by 20 square room, and he's now occupied the majority of that with, the exception to where the water softener and the water heater are. We didn't occupy that particular little area, but the operations itself, it ends up being Minneapolis out to Wilmer, and we can run about a 2.5, 3 hour operating session that moves, I mean, I'd say probably every bit of a couple hundred cars over the course of that time.
That's cool. I think that is really something I've really started to realize. There's a lot of people we get on this podcast now where their fathers have been involved in the hobby. That is new. That was not really... My dad was involved in the hobby too, but he kind of discovered the hobby when I discovered it. So, because he was born in the 20s. And, and it just wasn't a popular thing in the 50s. I mean, the hobby was starting to gain momentum, but it just wasn't that popular. I think this hobby has grown constantly through the decades. I don't think it's ever done anything but grow.
Well, I think that is the community of the modelers themselves. And we're fortunate enough through operations, Tom Gazer, and there's a few other guys that we've connected with over the past few years that we just started to get to know some of the guys even here in the Twin Cities and been grateful for the exchange of information. But you even yourself, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, is on the podcast, whether it's the podcast or if it's YouTube or the social media world, we're connecting with people that, Spoon, he ran into me at a modeler's retreat that Ken Ziska was putting on here in the Twin Cities. And I had heard the podcast. I'd been listening to it. I just told my dad a few days prior to listen to AML. And I said, well, this is Spoon. My dad's like, Spoon? Like, the guy from the podcast? And I says, yeah, this is the guy. And, those type of conversations, and I've had conversations since with Mike about, again, the proto throttle issue I was having about syncing something up. And he says, just give me a call and I'll take a look at it for you. We'll get it sorted out. I says, okay, we'll do that. And it's interesting, the dynamic. And I think collectively, Tom, yourself, and other modelers that are out there, it's great to be able to share what we enjoy. And we all have that common thread, and it happens to just be on two rails.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the common thread there. This is nice. I'm looking at season. I love how you do your videos in seasons. That's a really slick idea. And that way they're numbered and you can refer to them. And this is season 5, episode 3. I love how you managed to work Charlie's Angels into it.
I had a few people comment on that. That particular episode originally was going to be just for the modelers retreat. I was going to do a presentation, and I thought I'll just record it. So then if people want to ask questions, I can respond while it's being viewed. And there's a butt joke that slid in there. Charlie's Angels is in there. And I chopped that particular presentation up into 3 episodes that I put into the series. But it's keen that you picked up on that.
Yeah. All right. So, Tom, what's happening in your world then right now?
Well, I just finished the new staging cassette, which we talked about, and now I'm working on a
time out again.
Yes,
you and I are going to come to blows eventually. How'd you come up with this word cassette? I've never heard that ever. Have you ever heard that, Bruce?
Yep.
The staging cassette?
Yep.
Well, he's heard of 8 tracks too. They're different kinds of
cassettes. They're different. No, it's a fairly common term for guys with smaller layouts. They'll use cassettes that you can. His cassette is more like what I would say be a detachable fiddle yard. But there are cassettes where you run a train onto it. It will hold the train and run it in there, and then pick your whole train up off the layout and put it on a shelf or turn it around to go back out the other way, or put some cars on one. So yeah, cassette very common over in UK layouts.
Wow, it's
others with smaller spaces.
All right, I've done doing this podcast for almost 7 years now. That when this is out, and I've never heard that term. So why haven't you mentioned it before?
Well, I thought everybody knew it.
Where did you hear about it, Tom? Where did you hear that term?
Probably came from Lance Minheim.
Okay, well now we're going to have to get Lance back on here and grill him about it. Lance doesn't seem like the kind of guy that can handle me yelling at him though. All right. So you just finished this cassette, this staging cassette. So I'm sorry, I cut you off there.
That's fine. And now I'm working on a couple of projects for a good friend of mine. It's in a different scale, and I don't know. We'll see. I'll leave it at that. But yes, I'm working on some projects for him, and we're working on maybe trading some different products for my work and. I'm looking at a building right now that I've just built, and it's about 3 feet long and about 8 inches wide, and it's one building.
Really? Does your friend have a name, or would you rather not say?
No, I can tell you. It's David Payne.
Okay. And how'd you meet him?
I'm trying to remember. Let's see. I met him through some of other friends. I don't recall exactly how I met him, but he's a fantastic guy, very knowledgeable on the central of Georgia and all things that have to relate to that. And he's also a good rail fan of the Georgia Northeastern. So he posts information. He lives down where the Georgia Northeastern operates. So he runs across them pretty regularly when he's out running errands and stuff. So he'll take photos, or he'll give car counts, or let people know that a train is moving in a certain direction, or what's going on kind of on the railroad. And so I met him and just became friends again. Common interest of trains, and so he's got a O scale layout.
Wow.
Yes,
that's cool. Okay. Two rail O scale layout, and it's somewhat freelanced, central of Georgia and southern and that kind of stuff. And he's got tracked down, but he's looking to get some buildings. I'm trying to encourage him a little bit with completing a few projects to see if he'll move along with advancing on his layout. His
his layout is on pink foam, so he calls it the pink foam Pacific because he doesn't have any scenery down. So we're trying to get to the next level where he can get his track ballasted and start having some structures. We did an operating session on his layout, and it's a blast. It's a lot of fun to switch those O-scale cars. I mean, just the heft and the size and the sound. He's got decoders in them, sound. When you're talking an O-scale speaker versus an HO scale speaker, you're getting a lot more sound out of it. So working on that for him.
Have you ever heard us talk on the podcast about the CN Sandmore subdivision? If you steer him towards O-scale CN Sandmore subdivision on Facebook, and if he's an O-scaler, this layout will blow his brains out.
Okay.
It is fella Serge LaBelle. Hey Serge, how you doing, buddy? You're going to be back on the podcast, by the way. This is a fella Serge. He lives in Quebec, and he is building this absolutely spectacular O-scale layout. So go find that. Tell your buddy to go, David. You'll go find that, and he'll will inspire him. I'll tell you. That's the other thing too, with the social media. It gets to inspire everybody.
Yes.
We have to cover one last thing here. Everybody needs to understand that Tom Klimoski, or Thomas, as he's known. He was known occasionally when his dad would be yelling at him. Tom Klimoski is the guy that came up, that inspired the Marginally Adequate podcast. Tony Cook and I were doing the Kelly questions with you, and we were going along, and you were being great, but you still hadn't really figured out whether we were serious or not. And Tony and I were mumbling on about the score, about what score we were gonna give you for a particular question. And you said something, I don't remember it exactly, but you said something like, well, how does the scoring system work? And we didn't have an answer. And then Tony said, well, you have to understand the podcast is marginally adequate, or something like that. And then boom, that was it. And away we went. And there's T-shirts with marginally adequate on it.
There are too.
There's T-shirts. There's everything is about the AML is marginally adequate.
Yeah, well, I told you that was what I was shooting for. I was shooting for a score that was marginally adequate, and then you just took that and ran with it. And that came from back when I was a captain on the fire department. One of my firefighters kept bugging me about his annual evaluation, that he wanted to know what he was going to get, what he was going to get. I said, you're going to get marginally adequate.
Well, boom.
And it didn't ask me anymore after that. I don't know why.
Well, there you go. And you're the guy. You created. We got to give out the Tom Klimoski Award for the once a year for the marginally adequate person, the best marginally adequate member of the AML Nation. We're gonna have to do another. We're gonna have to talk again, guys. I'm sorry, but
anytime.
Yeah, we are. We haven't even. The two of you have so much information for people out there. This is this particular episode is lousy because I can tell as I'm doing it, I'm just like all over the map, and people are gonna have to listen to this like 3 times to get it all.
Triple the value.
That's true. Good point. Yeah, you're getting like 3 podcasts in one. You're being awfully quiet, Bill.
Well, I got all kinds of things to say, but we're trying to keep the content to a minimum.
We got the guy on here that created the marginally adequate slogan, and we got the guy on here that created Fred the Sock.
Not at the same time.
Not exactly at the same time. You weren't in the same room or nothing. But it's the two guys. It's those 2 guys. You two guys you should be in the AML Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame or something.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need an AML Hall of Fame.
Well, if we're both in it, must be a marginally adequate Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
You're not in it yet.
Okay.
I said should be. Don't be writing your acceptance speech just yet.
Yeah. It's like the guy that gives himself his own
There's
nickname.
many discussions that have to have before this happens.
What were you going to say, Bill?
No, I just said it's like the guy that gives gives himself his own nickname.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Fruit Loops.
Yeah, it's a long process to get in the Hall of Fame. All right, that's it. Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Sure. If you have any suggestions for AML members for the Hall of Fame, please send them to us at our email address, which is modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L like llama, not two L's like llama. modelerslife@gmail.com.
You guys have completely screwed me up because I was going to make this an episode with Tom Klimoski, and it doesn't seem like it's been an episode, but I got it in my brain that it is. We're doing it because it's coming out. It's coming out just like 2 weeks before Tom, Steve. Tom? Can I call you Steve?
Sure.
Hey, you.
Yeah.
You with the book.
Yeah, you with the book over there. So, Dave Abley sent me an autographed copy of his book, Tom.
That was really nice of him.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do about putting this podcast out. So anyways, everybody, so how do they buy it? They go to the Kalmbach page and
go to the KalmbachHobbyStore.com.
And right.
That's where you could find it.
And search for the book entitled
Building the Right-Sized Layout.
Boom. And we have a website, modelerslife.com. If you go there, you're going to see all kinds of information about the podcast. And if you want to send an email, but you don't want to type in the address, you can just, there's a picture of the moderately agitated male boy in a particularly agitated state. And Bruce, the other thing,
yes.
William, I think when he's doing art,
Billy, let's go with Billy.
Yeah, when he's doing
Billy,
when he's being artistic, he seems like a William. When you're eating pizza with him, he seems like a Bill.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just depends on the mood that you're in. Are you in a gallery or are we in a bar?
Yeah, exactly.
Like bottle of red, bottle of white. All depends on your mood tonight.
Yeah. So William was the guy. What was I going to say? Don't tell me.
Well, I don't know, but we'll find out in a minute, folks. So stand by.
Damn it! I was going to say something too. It was really interesting. Oh well. Oh well. So much. Anyways, it was a William that created Fred the Sock. Oh yeah, I remember now. He also created this great drawing of Fred the Sock behind the viewer mail desk, which we have seen, and I'm trying to find just the right spot for it. There's like it's a great picture, and we have seen it. It was on. Don't tell me. Let me guess. It was viewer mail number 82, which was back in June 14th, I think. It was appeared as the lead for that particular podcast. Now I'm finished. Oh, we also have Midwest Model Railroad. Bruce, hey, Tom, do you have a Modeler's Life T-shirt?
No, I don't.
Do you have any swag at all?
I have the little button that you gave me that when we met over at Scale Trains.
That was pretty nice of me, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Give you a button.
And the dime. The dime for Scale.
That's right. I give you that, which was, made by our friend. I can't remember. Too big. This podcast is getting too big. So anyways, Tom, Bill, you have T-shirts.
Yes, that's right, Steve.
You guys should almost be separated. You should never be on the show again together, but that won't happen. Yeah, that's what we're going to do again. We have, Tom, if you want to get your AML merch, you can go to MidwestModelRailroad.com. Where do you buy most of your model railroad supplies, Tom?
A couple different places. There's one locally here called Blue Ox Trains. The guy is really nice. He's also a NMRA member of the Piedmont Division, which I am also. So I try to support the local hobby shop here in town. But I also buy from Midwest Model Railroad and a few other online vendors. Perfect.
But Midwest, I bet, is your favorite online vendor.
Absolutely.
Attaboy. So go to MidwestModelRR.com, and if you go there and you scroll across the navigation bar, click on AML, boom, you're in a wonderland of AML merchandise, T-shirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, whatever you could possibly need. I think we've covered everything now, Bruce?
I think so, but I'm sure somebody will let us know if we forgot something.
Yeah. So because this is an episode, I'm sticking with this being an episode, so it goes out in time to introduce Tom's new book, which is called
Building the Right-Sized Layout.
Perfect. 112 pages. How many chapters?
8 chapters.
8 chapters. How many pages per chapter?
Varies depending on the chapter, but there's over 250 photos.
Is there really?
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Holy mackerel. How many track plans are in it?
There are 4 original track plans, 3 that I drew up, 1 that William drew up, and then there's also a, we'll call it a bonus track plan by Lance Menheim that he did for one of my friends.
Wow, cool. And so it was William, because when he drew it up, he was being more artistic. So that's when we call him William, when he's being artistic. I feel like this is a really tough room. I feel like I'm on stage sometimes and I'm banging the mic. Is this on?
I always just try not to step on the great comment you're gonna throw out there.
Yeah,
that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah,
so we're just waiting for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too. I'm waiting for it as well.
And apparently, it's not coming along quick enough.
No. All right. So we're going to finish this now, and Tom, you're going to take us out of here, and you're going to say, do you know what to say at the end of the podcast?
I believe so.
All right.
No, that's not it.
Yeah, that's not it. I don't think. I think we're going to find out the hard way. I'm going to find the.
We're going to go over under on this one, or
yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's do over under.
Let's see if I can hit.
I say 70-30 that he won't get it.
I'm thinking more. I'm kind of leaning 50-50. I'm a little.
You're a little more optimistic.
I'm a bit more optimistic. Well, Tom, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say. Yeah, I guess you were right, Bruce.
Hey, there you go.
I was just too optimistic. I was hoping
you had high hopes for the lab, but once again,
yeah, the clouds were rolling in, and I was hoping for a sunny day.
There it goes, spinning into the spiral, right into the ground, into the hill. Yeah.
Happy rails to you.
It seems like we might have lost them.
I think we lost them.
What timing?
There was a bit of a bloop I heard there, and then maybe he's gone. Well, maybe it's up to William now.
Yeah.
Do you think you can handle this, William? I'll give you. You're going to get this one.
Yeah,
100% right here.
Yeah, right on.
Now that Tom's left in a huff.
Yeah. Well.
Well, William, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
A Modeler's Life is sponsored by Big Ass Maine Potatoes. If you've got a Maine potato, you've got a big ass.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
We're talking for 2 hours, and then all of a sudden the guy just
poof.
Yeah.
Well, we'll never know if he knows the ending or not.
Yeah, I guess we'll never know.